Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Go to Market series powered by Growthverse. And today we have a juggernaut in house to address a salient, very important, and yet largely confused role, which is product management. And today, the juggernaut that we have in house is not just an experienced product manager, he is an advisor, he's a founder, he's an innovation consultant, a product strategist, and currently a product strategy director at Infinom. Um, this person embodies a lot about what it takes to be a global product manager. Like I mentioned, some of the things he's done, and even more recently, he led product strategy for Mara, a popular blockchain product that is very well in Africa. And personally, I love to call him PSG. And at this time, I don't mean the football club PSG, I mean the product strategy guru. His name is Chris Bradshaw, and he's currently leading product strategy as a product strategy director at Infinom in the UK, which has clients from startups to scale ups to enterprises around the world in the US, in the UK, in North America, even in Asia. So this person is well rounded to tell us some intricate things of how to be a different product manager and how to not be confused as a project manager or a glorified project manager per se. And in this case, I'm so glad that we have someone of this stature to tell us about product management, not just for the newbies, people trying to get into this role, but also for early career product managers. So if you just started your career 1 year, this is a perfect video for you. And if you're more experienced, even about 3 or 4 years, and you've been in product management, this person will be able to give you some tips that are not so found on articles or on like some courses that you find online. So I'm so much pumped that we have Chris here today to tell us more about what it takes to be the best PM you can be and to scale your career to become a global PM and to be globally respected. So I'm so pumped to welcome Chris today. Chris.
You're welcome. And what an intro as well. I mean, that was something I will always take away now as the guru. I like that. So thank you so much. And you're right. It's a tough old challenge to really define, product management, because I think there's a lot of things out there that sound similar. Product strategy, product manager, product owner, and ultimately it's all about what does that person do, what impacts do they have on the world. And I think that's really the lens I've always taken from my side, is it's like, how can you be useful, how can you make an impact, and how can that impact individuals and organizations in a really positive way. But thank you for having me. It's a superb intro.
Thank you so much. No, and you embody all of those we've said, and it's evident in the results that you've been able to come up with. Thank you so much, Chris, for being on the session with us. So quickly to dive into the meat of the session, which is why we're here, right? What is a PM? Who is a PM? And I mean what, in the sense that like there's so much confusion out there. So clarify for us. And for me, a person like myself, to be a PM, what does it take? So who is a PM?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I suppose to set the context of what one is, I can lean back into my own experience, how I fell into that world, really. Because historically, my background was in engineering. So I've built teams and companies from an engineering standpoint, and I've always focused on customer first. So how do you make a product valuable to human beings, and how does that connect and meet the needs of a customer? And mostly, how does that also build a business? So historically, I've worked in public sector doing this. I've worked in corporate worlds doing this. Even worked in music doing this as well, which is kind of fun. But I then also changed from that into agency. And the point is, whichever vehicle I've worked in, it's always the same. Like the product needs to serve the needs of somebody, and that's where my lens has always come from. I've previously even founded several companies as well. So I founded an agency called We Agile. I set up a company called Rocket Studio, which is a venture studio, and run some events for founders, things like that. But again, like all these are just different vehicles that I've just been designed to kind of create products that help people do something. And that product doing something always comes back to it needs the product manager to be that person at the intersection between customer experience, the technology, and the business needs. And I guess realistically being, passionate about bringing, features and products to market that makes people's lives easier, and dare I say even happy, if I'm honest. And, so what is a product manager? I think it's somebody that really understands the ability to kind of communicate clearly and leverage the kind of superpowers, we'll call them, of all these different teams. So designers, engineers, the clients in the business, maybe even marketing teams. And it's how do you bring it all together and push forward a vision and make sure that they are, the vision is well defined, but equally the roadmap is clear, things are prioritized, so we understand what is feasible, not feasible, and kind of what's the main impact and effort required to deliver certain features of a product. So it's someone who can really communicate, but also prioritize. And I think really just not having to be the expert in everything, but being an expert in collaborating with lots of people and bringing that together. And I think really the principles around that are quite strict and quite hard at times. But I think if you can deal with people and you can deal with the terminology that comes with design and technology, and it's almost like humanize it so people can talk the same language between stakeholder and product people, you're really then that person in the middle that makes the whole thing move along. So it's less of a role, I'd say. It's more like a responsibility, if I'm honest, to make great product that does great things in the world.
Yeah, thank you. And I like the way you actually touched on different quick facets of how you can actually be a successful PM. I believe that definition is enough to actually let anybody understand what he even needs to actually be a real product manager, which is communication, very key. Thank you for that. So quickly, all of that looks nice, right? All of that looks juicy, looks sweet. But sure, why should anybody even care? Like, why should I want to be a PM? What's the perks for me? What's in it for me? Like, if I'm doing all of this work, like you said, manage stakeholders, manage products, build please, what is in it for me?
I would say the ability to do pretty much what I just talked about. It gives you the freedom to really work, if I'm really honest, across any industry and pretty much in any country as well, because as the world evolves rapidly, products are being, in more demand. Everyone essentially has a business, is becoming a tech business, or should be. And I think products they're essential, right, for every company to be competitive, to be fast, to be lean, and to make, a significant difference. So being a product manager, if you have the right skill sets and the right history of work, you can essentially almost be a bit like a digital nomad, where you can pick an industry and work in it, but then you can shift to something else. And I would definitely implore people to not be afraid to change, like be in somewhere, learn, grow, take what you can from it, move it to the next thing. My history has obviously been from, like I said earlier, working different types of companies, start my own companies, and now I work at Infinum, leading the strategy initiative there. And every step that I've done a change, sometimes it's been really smooth and great, sometimes it's been really hard, but it's got me to a point where I have learned a lot now. So I can confidently talk to companies, whether they are a big global enterprise or a new startup, but I have that confidence because I've done the work and I've done the change and I've kind of learned on that way. So for me, it's like about freedom. And I suppose when you talk about why a product manager or why work anywhere, right? I mean, it's like financial freedom, time freedom, choice freedom. And I think for me, it's helped me go from like, an employee back in my early 20s to running companies, founding companies, and consulting my own companies because I had that experience. So yeah, for me, it's certainly a way to get, on the fast track to freedom and to kind of have a really, I guess, diverse and interesting career. So you're not bound by just one niche. You can jump between companies and get a really good, rich experience for work and for life.
Yeah, I'll pick two quick things, like the flexibility, the freedom. I believe everybody wants that. But you also mentioned something rich, but not that rich. I mean, the rich in terms of finances. I'm sure that comes as part of the package, does it?
It does, yeah. I mean, I think the skill to be a product manager is something that not everybody can do or wants to do, I guess, because some people just like to be very specialist in their world. Like they could be the best coder, the best designer, the best, and we sort of sit in this kind of intersection between what the client wants and what the agency does, for example, and we kind of make that work in a really smooth way. So for me, it's quite niche. It's a lot about communication and collaboration. It is as much about technology and design. And I think, that can be a highly sought after job in, typical tech companies or non-tech companies, because ultimately everyone eventually will need to innovate enough to have products in their business, and someone needs to manage that. And what I mean by levels of and pay, of course, you can do this as a consultant as well, which I guess the money is significantly higher. But it depends what you want. And I'm saying that this gives you like the freedom of choosing. You can be in-house, you can be external, you can do your own company. But I believe the market is in need now of really good product managers. So for me, it's certainly something I wish I'd learned at school was a job. I just sort of fell into it from just doing this. But yeah, for people who are just starting the industry, I think honing your skills to maybe one day know you can have that choice of going either freelance, consultant, or run your own company is a really empowering thing. And I think that's why I'd always recommend it as a career choice.
Oh, excellent. For me, I'm sold. If I was starting out, I'm actually sold. But so we've spoken about how juicy this is, right? So I think what skill set do I need if I want to get into as a PM? What are the competency models? What bucket of skills do I need to have, or to be a PM?
I mean, it starts really with, I love how in product management world, everyone thinks you have to be this kind of ninja in technology and be able to do everything in tech wise. I would say it's more the opposite. Like, I think everything's about people. And I think that I'm fortunate I have an engineering background and I've done some coding and I've done some architecture. I wouldn't say I'm the best, but I talk that language. But as a PM, I think you really need to understand it. It's about being clear at communicating what we're doing, and clear to communicate between multidiscipline types of teams. One day you're talking to engineers, one day you're talking to a marketing officer at a client, or you're talking to a designer. You need to be able to talk a clear language between them. So communication is key. I think being able to leverage, build, or learn frameworks to help you and your team and clients. And what I mean by that is, so at Infinum, for example, right now we are building what we call an innovation framework, and that's ongoing forever, really. But it's about how do you build the best practice on every step of an engagement. So you have an idea over here, and then you want to, build an innovation. There's a lot of steps in that need to be checked and making sure the risk is taken out of it. And these frameworks can be used for things like roadmaps, user story making, running like design thinking sessions. It's just think of it like a toolkit. So the more you work in this industry, the more you can build your toolkit, and you'll find that as you go into more challenges later, you can reuse this. So basically you're getting better and your tools are getting better. And then by doing that, you can then essentially be more confident in essentially empowering your team members to have the right context, to achieve the right goals with their skills. That way you don't have to be the person that's like the best at everything. You can just basically empower those people. Yeah, exactly. I think your job then is to basically educate and lead in that sense, but we're very good at like doing trade-off decisions. So when you deal a lot of features and products, they have negative impacts or positive impacts. There's technical debt where you have to really understand, like, is it feasible in this phase or is it the next phase? And I think the combination of all this stuff is about having the conviction and confidence to, switch between these like roles of communicating, trading off decisions, and making sure that you're just really enabling the product team to deliver something extraordinary and basically on time, and that the business you're working with is working in a true partnership together. So I'd say it's a lot more skills like that than it is I have to be the best at Java, or I have to be the best at design thinking. Essentially, it's about collating these frameworks to then deploy them into the teams that you work with to help them be better. And you're the person in the background collaborating, and documenting, and helping the business then work through this kind of challenge with you.
Yeah, so more like a coordinator, coordinating everything, communicating. Okay, that's
absolutely.
So,
I'd say it's a bit like a collaboration coach, and some as like an unofficial title for this, but you're kind of to help people collaborate and move at speed, and that comes from communication being clear and concise.
Yeah, okay, that's excellent. Are there some other art skills? Say, you need to know some design, you need to know some architecture, you need to know some agile, you need to know some DevOps. What are some of those art skills?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think understanding the agile philosophy is mandatory, if I'm honest. You don't have to be a scrum master as such, but understanding the way agile works is a very big win. I think also from using a tool I use quite a lot is called a design sprint, which is about how do you basically rapidly solve big challenges or prove new ideas quickly. It's a way to kind of understand the challenge, document it, test it, and validate it before you get into the big product lifecycle build, which can take months to years sometimes. So it's about how do you do those things quickly. And I think also just being able to, like I say, use a framework. And in fact, I'm looking at a thing here that I have, which is very cheesy. It's just my certificate, which is kind of a workshop and master that I got earlier this year, which is basically that. It's how do you empower the teams to collaborate faster and better. So if you think about it like this, if just delivery of a product is about how good and flawless and error-free it can be to go to market, if you're in a discovery phase, is that how fast can you learn and how fast can you teach the people in the teams what we're doing and where we're going. So I think all these things together is what really makes a great PM. It's like agile thinking, communication, clarity, running these kind of workshop frameworks, and just being able to prioritize things in a really clear roadmap, just so everyone's got this like unified vision. If the business has a North Star and the product team are looking to understand how to build that North Star, you're that person in the middle that's going to break that down into almost like bite-sized chunks to work together and map the journey clearly.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much clear about what I need to start with. So basically, I'm interested. I want to become a product manager. Where do I start? Do I need to take what do you recommend from your experience? Is it a course? Is it trying to build projects? Is it a portfolio? What are the evidences I need?
Yeah, I can't stress enough about just doing the work. And that might sound quite obvious, but it's the best things I've learned, good or bad, have just been from doing projects. And some projects have been amazing. Some projects have been terrible in terms of how they've ended it. But it's been a mixture of like the two, which has taught me so much more. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time at the minute, on social media talking about stuff for marketing reasons to sell themselves. But really, I would say for early stage people wanting to get into this or at the start of their career, just do as many projects as you can. And like I said at the start, just then take the learnings and try and document them for yourself at least as you go through that, because all that experience and documentation builds up to this kind of toolkit that helps you then one day lead and teach others to do that. So I think for me it is about that, and not being afraid to kind of stretch yourself on stuff. If you're not sure about things, that's where you lean to your team to teach you. But I think you have to keep doing the work. And then for me, it's about once you've done the work, that is like a portfolio, but it's built on reality, not like, if I'm honest, marketing fluff. You're not just making things up to sound great, because I've seen that, but a lot of people do that. It's like, I have done this work. It's been real, it's significant, it's had an impact, and I was part of that. And if you can get your clients on board to maybe validate that, I think referrals are the best way to get anywhere in life, really. It's like, if you don't believe me, you can speak to this CTO at the company I work with. They loved it, So it is about building connections and network, but proving it through the work itself.
Okay, that's a check. And I can attest to the referrals being a proof of concept, I think, all my life. I think that's been what has helped me thus far. So I'll quickly say, So what's your take about having templates or product roadmap templates, having and you can see many of that online, because I'm just starting out as a PM. I want to be a PM, and I see people say you need to know how to write an acceptance criteria to the best. You need to know this. Like, are those things that important, or what should I do?
I think they're important as much as, you know, most jobs have a requirement to do certain outcomes and admin chores around it. But I would certainly say, you know, in the ascendance of things like, you know, ChatGTP and things like that, you have tools now to help you create a lot of these faster. The skill is more about being able to understand what the client actually wants and then translating that into like a plan of action, and not depending on, we have to use a template and that's it, because templates are great, frameworks are great, but they're flexible. You need to be flexible. And I would say the best product managers are the ones that can take parts of these different things and then mold it around the challenge. So for example, if I'm a client and I've hired a product manager and his team to do something, but I've already done, you know, 6 months worth of research and user testing and product market fit, you know, why would they want to do that again? They probably wouldn't. But our team is meant to be, we would take that, learn from it, and adapt the frameworks and templates then accordingly. So I would certainly recommend having them as your toolkit, but I would also recommend don't just run that same script every time. You have to be able to, like, listen, empathize, and adapt and be bespoke with your approach. But yeah, they do help though. So I would say your journey is to kind of collect those sorts of things as well as your education experience, and then together that's where you know, climb the ladder, we'll call it, of product manager excellence.
Okay, yeah, excellent. So what does your day-to-day look like? We know that you've talked about different things about engaging clients, communicating. On an average day-to-day for a new PM or like a growing PM, what does it entail?
So really you're spending, I'd say, 50% of your time, you know, that's my collaboration thing, on stand-ups and calls roughly with different team members. So for example, my day already today, I've had a stand-up with a technology team, a design team, and a project team. And that project team call actually had the client on there. So really you're basically checking in all the time that the plan you've made with the client at the start of these engagements is happening. And then as things change and adapt, you're the person then to take control of that and say, okay, we might be behind on this, but here's how we get up to speed. Or the client's had this new idea. Is it right for this phase or the next phase? So I think a lot of it is around that kind of collaboration and talking with different parties always. But I think equally it's about, can you capture that into a meaningful document and then sort of come back proactively to the client and your team when needed and say, look, here's a risk I've spotted, or here's an idea that would work. What do you think? So that's what I said at the start. I mean, it's a role on paper, but it's responsibility really as a general rule of thumb, because you represent really both sides of the coin. You're kind of like a one foot in the business world, one foot in the product world. So you're there to represent both sides, but in the most healthy and useful way.
Excellent. I think that's very, very important that people actually know what they do every day. Like, it's not that I'll sit down on Figma and be doing wireframe all day and I get tired and I get bored. So I think it's important people know how much communication goes into being a PM.
I'd say 50% production, 50% communication. To be really
Okay, that's very good. So you already mentioned something about how to scale fast, like how to be different, or how to scale your career, maybe what makes you successful, which is about communication, clarity, and the rest. But what are the other things that can help me scale my career fast? I'm a 1 year PM, or I just got into product management. So do I need to focus on a particular industry? Do I need to focus on being an executor? Need to focus on that. What should I focus on to become like a top PM?
I would say it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think every career jump and change I've made is because I think I got to the point where I just kind of stopped learning or didn't feel like I was growing fast enough. and that happens, where I work now, we're like a 400 person company across the globe. Before that, my own companies were, only a few people, to be honest. Even when I CEO'd a group of companies, we're like 50 people. And I learned a lot in those spaces, but I didn't actually, I got to a point where I plateaued and then felt like I'm just doing the same work. I'm just cycling here. It's not really climbing a mountain and learning. And that's how I love to work. So I think it's about, if you want to grow fast, don't be afraid to be around people that are more senior or experienced than you and just learn of them. That's one thing. Secondly, reach out to communities. The Workshop and Master I just mentioned is a community of global workshop specialists who, again, I can lean into and talk with and learn from. So find communities that are of your interests and join and just be part of that. You'll find the time most people are really open to giving, they want to help other people. That's kind of a philosophy I think most people like to do in this industry. And I guess thirdly, it's also just, I think there's a lot to be said. If you've been in this game for a little while, or you're maybe not a newbie, you're kind of sort of midway through, don't be afraid to kind of open source what you're doing and share, come with a spirit of giving, because I think this is what I've learned from mentoring and talks and things like that. I think by articulating and giving your experience, you kind of take back as well, like things you learn about yourself and things you can improve, or questions people are asking that you could maybe benefit from. So I think they're the kind of three things I would say. Surround yourself with bigger, more experienced people where you can, join communities that interest you, and then don't be afraid to be the educator, be the guide, and share your knowledge openly,
Thank you for that. I think that's very, very important. I think lately, and I think I actually need to share this video to some of friends of mine that have actually been asking, like they've been at a very good rate in their career, but they want to take it to the next level. And I think being open to share, I think that can actually be a lot empowering. Yes, that's very good. So if you want to recruit, and this is a very question that came out from this, is if you want to recruit a PM right now, what are the skill sets you look for? What are the not actually a skill set, not like an art skill, like an art skill, but what would you look out for, or to make if they are all very good PMs, what would you look out for to say,
exactly.
I want to?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I think a lot of people can put a lot of things down on their LinkedIn's and CVs, agile gurus and product this, product that, I see it all the time. But for me, it's back to what I said before. I think what I'm interested in is that track record. Like, what have you worked on? Like, what impact did it have? What did you learn from it? What was good and bad about it? What challenge did you overcome? And I think you quickly find that people who use these things as a marketing or sales gimmick, and I've seen a lot of people do this, talking about, we're agile and we're this. I think when you really peel the layers away, you can see if that person actually did the work, or they just were part of a team that did most of the work and they're just latching onto it. So I think that for me is a really good telling sign. But I think also asking them, how do they deal with a scenario? Because for me, it's about knowing, can that person run, for example, like a workshop, or how would they manage a sprint? And I think it's more about asking them about circumstantial examples that obviously validates they are good at certain useful things like agile and product management, ownership, etc. I think that's really good. But I think lastly, it's, can you articulate clearly ways you've done either research or insights, workshops, strategic advisory work around a product or a problem for a business, and what was the outcome? I think they're the kind of things I really lean into. And then you can ask them more generalized questions like, talk about your people, time management, road mapping, feature prioritization of schools, because they're just like part of the job. That's what everyone expects you to do. But I think really it's about, I think most of these things are about stories. If they can tell you the story that really makes you lean into it and go, they've done that, they are the expert. That's what I want to see and hear. And usually, back to what I said earlier, if you've got a case study or something public that goes, this is the thing that we did together, and that speaks volumes to me over someone with the best glossy CV/sales pitch, because that won't be a long-term engagement then. Well, that might be a red herring, So that's how I look at things quite a lot. Do the work, and
talking about your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What really matters is the work, if I'm honest with you.
Oh, great. So this is a very, I think this would be a B part of that question, and I've been asking this question as well before about what kind of products should you focus on? Should you focus on like the core product that makes the most impact? Like I've spoken about, like what impact did you, what you do, what impact came from it, or should I focus on probably a new industry and launching a new business? So meaning I'm starting out this whole idea, I'm bringing up ideas. Let's add this. Like, is it building up ideas or probably the revenue impact? So let me just go to a company that is safe, that I know that they're actually good, and I become a PM there, and I say, my impact has made $5 billion last year, or I launched a new product from the start. What's bigger?
That's a good one. And I think it comes down to what the individual is looking for, if I'm really honest, because I think, some person would have a different want than say somebody else. And what I mean by that is, historically, I used to love building my own companies. I think I've done like 5 now, maybe 6, in terms of agencies and consultancies in the last sort of 10 years. And I love doing that. I love building the companies who then built products from the ground up. And I love the idea of like being part of that journey from like the idea to the innovation. And that was what really drove me for quite a while. But then I got to the point where I realized like it was fun, but the impact the products were having didn't seem that meaningful to me once we actually launched into the market. It was great to be part of that creation process, but products sometimes take time, and and that's kind of one of the reasons why I actually kind of sidestepped from kind of consultancy and building companies into Infinum, for example, because the reach and the scale that they have, I could be part of. And I think strategy and product management is a big part of that. So for me, it was about, I wanted, I kind of talk from my own personal experience. Everyone has their own differences. But for me, it was like, by going into, say, Infinum, I took all my past history and we worked on, a product we launched last year called Mara, which was basically a financial technology product, really, but the point of it was to help enable financial freedom and literacy across Africa. And when we launched that, we had like 4 million people on the pre-launch list alone, so we already have a huge humongous traction and users. And that was about, for me, it's more important to do work like that because it has meaning to me. It's like, no matter who you are, whether you're rich or poor, whether you've got the best device, no device, a bank, no bank, this was a product to enable anyone, anywhere, to all work on an even keel and have access to financial services, education, technology, to help empower their lives. And that for me felt more significant after doing that and then probably building companies from the ground up, or helping clients build a startup in some ways. It's weird, but I don't think there's a real right or wrong way to do it. I think you just have to be open to trying new things and don't stress too much about the change, because I've only learned myself what I've loved doing by taking those changes. Like leaving my own companies that I built was quite difficult at first and probably an ego thing. But now I'm doing this work. I'm doing work that actually I feel like has bigger impact across the world. And that actually makes my heart sing more than just, I'm a CEO of a company type thing. So it's the individual what they want. But I implore everyone to try everything and then make your decision first. That's the way I've done it.
Yeah, thank you. And this might be the last question.
Sure.
But so it says, if you're starting again, so you're in my you're in my situation. I'm trying to get into product management. So what would you do differently to get to where you are right now faster? I know it might have taken a long time, but what were those levers you were actually going to pull to, like, okay, when I do this and do this and do this, I should get to where I am faster? What would those things be?
Well, yes, this is interesting because I have to reflect on my own life now and figure out what I've done. I think first of all, it's, if you know you want to be this, I think you have to commit to it and go all in. Like, if you want to be this role, look for everything that helps you do that. Don't deviate away and be, a bit of this and a bit of that. I spent my 20s trying lots of things. As a coder, as a designer at one point, did marketing. I tried a lot. I don't begrudge that at all, but if I'd known about this in my earlier years, I would have probably just done straight all in and looked for that and just leaned into it, and that's what I would have done, and get back around people who've done this before you, get into the communities I mentioned, just go into it all in. I think secondly, if you're in a position where you're doing something and it doesn't feel like it's helping you grow, really the way I look at it for now is like, I'm my own business, right? I look out, like no one's gonna look out for you more than yourself.
Yeah.
You have to look at yourself now as like a brand. You're your own accountant, your own brand, your own, operator. So make sure you're always growing yourself, always. And you feel like you're staying in something because it's just convenient, or you've got a great title, but actually it doesn't really make your heart sing or fill your soul. Move on to the next thing, because like there's so much things out there, and I think everyone's going to keep changing jobs faster and faster as things accelerate. So just don't be afraid of doing that. I guess lastly, just be around people you want to be with. I think you spend so much time working with people, and I think if those people aren't educating you and you're not getting something from it, or inspiring you to do great work, that's fine. It happens, but just be conscious of that and find that next thing. I feel very fortunate. I'm surrounded by these great individuals at Infinum that are very talented, and we all really have a great working dynamic. Whether it's in person or remotely. I just think those things matter the most, and I don't necessarily fall into the trap of this job has the biggest paycheck, I have to go for that job, because like I said at the start, freedom comes in all forms. Yes, it's financial freedom. It's also work-life balance. It's being freedom to work wherever you want. There's a lot of things to put into play there. So there'll be my kind of like top tips without getting too granular. And just be open to new experiences always.
Thank you. I think because a lot of people could get attached and be like, oh, this is my baby, or okay, I'm the CPO, or I'm the principal product manager, which is becoming a big name now. Principal, what does that even mean? It's just to get you on, like you're the only person.
Absolutely. I would say, from somebody who had a great, if you look at my LinkedIn, it tells a tale of someone who climbed up the ladder and came from a role to an MD to a CEO of a group, then my own companies, and it all sounds and paints a great picture, but that's just social media. That's what it does. Behind the scenes is different. I remember when I was a group CEO, by the end of it I hated it. I was like, I'm not into this anymore. I want to do my own thing. And I think doing that at the time was exciting and great, and I think that's helped me get to where I am now, where you can just work on things with a clean conscience that you've done it for you, and you're not just being made to do it. And I think that's where stress comes from, isn't it? If we're made to do something we don't want to do, stress creeps in, and I feel like life's too short to be doing that. So this is kind of my thoughts anyway. I mean, whether they're right or wrong, I don't know, but just from my experience.
I totally agree. And I think about 4 years ago or so, I took a product management course, and one of the reasons why I just thought, should I become a PM or a PMM, which what I'm doing right now, was a lot of stress. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and like you said, those stressors actually comes from things that we do, right? And expectations and all of those things. But I think getting to your own point of like not being scared of moving, if that actually helps you, I think that's very, very important. And a lot of PMs should actually hear this and know how to make the right career decisions, and can want someday become a PSG as well, like Chris. So this will be this basically will be closing the curtain on this for today, but I would really be pleading right now in public that Chris will be open to have a Twitter space where people can even ask more salient questions, more personal questions about how they can grow their career from early career to become mid and expert in PM, and becoming a director, and even becoming impactful as much as the things you've done, like with companies like Mara, Infinum, and the rest. And we'll be glad to have you on such a session. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's actually a very, very busy day. It's midweek and a lot of things going on around. So thank you so much for the time today, sharing all of these nuggets with us. And if you watch the videos to this point, one thing I want you to take home is don't fear. Someone of this expertise and experience has done it, has been there and done it, and he has gone through different kind of roles, been CEO, been PM. But the most important thing is impact, right? And freedom. So what does freedom mean to you? Why are you trying to get into tech? Most likely you're trying to earn more money. Most likely you're trying for job security, or you're looking for the future. All of this man has been able to do it. And as a PM, he has shown that it's possible. Because my own fear initially was the stress or something. But he's enjoying the freedom at being a PM, working fully remote, and having the flexibility of all of this. So this is a call to you if you're looking to become a PM. And so thank you so much, Chris. We'll be open to have you for the Twitter space soon. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Catch us in the next one for another non-coding job in tech that you could actually consider as well. So we'll be closing the curtain on product management today. So thank you, everyone.